Hi, everyone. This is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is the astrology of December 16th through 22nd, 2019. It's hard to believe that we are at the end of the year nearly, and what a year it's been. So as we kind of get closer to the end of the year, we'll be recapping some of the highs and maybe some of the lows and some of the challenges of 2019. But in the meantime, here we are coming to the end of Sagittarius Sagittarius season this week. Sagittarius season is a time in our zodiac calendar when we are more naturally inclined, let's say, invited to explore and to try new things and to really think about these themes about wisdom and education and getting a new perspective and traveling and even foreign travel. These are all the things that are under, let's say, the umbrella of Sagittarius. So we're getting ready to move on to a new season. Capricorn season does start on the 21st, which is Saturday here in New York City, where I am doing this live broadcast from, but might be the next day for you if you are halfway around the world. We also have Venus changing signs this week. So Venus moves from Capricorn and then we'll go into Aquarius on the 20th, which is, I believe that's Thursday. So, no, that's Friday. So let's dive in. What I think I was mentioning in one of my previous updates, this past week, I recorded a video with Ophi of the AstroTwins. We did that yesterday in New York City in Manhattan, and we had a really juicy conversation about Saturn and Pluto, two planets that will be meeting up in the sky come January. But one of the points I made in the talk, and by the way, make sure you RSVP to get my talk for free. The link is in the show notes. If you RSVP, you get that talk on January 1st when the whole global, let's say, Starstruck 2020 Global Astrology Summit releases live. But in the meantime, we're going into this time where Saturn and Pluto are coming together for the first time in 38 years, if I'm doing my math correctly. And we've been feeling this all 2019. I think that's the important thing to remember. And the term that I've used throughout 2019, and if you've been following my work, you might remember, is this idea of the wrecking ball. And why am I using that word? Is because these two planets, they're meeting up in Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of structure. It's the sign of buildings, things we can, touch. It's the sign of both also internal structures. I think that's important to remember that for some of us, Capricorn, depending on what sign we are, talks about our internal structures. And one of the examples I used when I was speaking to Ophi in our talk on yesterday was I was having problems and my next door neighbors had moved out, and the building management had come in and they were doing demolition next door. Now, if you can imagine sitting or being in the apartment next door to demolition for a couple months, it was a good solid 2 months. But hearing these bangs and, even from where this desk is, where I record this, the wall would start to shake. You could hear, it almost felt like they were going to come through the wall. And, of course, I was really frustrated and unnerved about it for a long time, as any normal person would be. And then I realized that it was a very profound metaphor for what was going on in the sky and also what was going on in my life. This idea that these old structures, these old boundaries, these old walls, they need to come down. And so this was all happening as we started to get into that last eclipse season. That was back in July of 2019. So it was this kind of physical manifestation of the energy. So I wanted you all to keep that in mind. So this idea that, I used the word wrecking ball in the talk. And so I don't think it's something that we should feel afraid of, even though it's annoying. Certainly was loud and annoying for me 6-7 months ago. But what it really did tell me was a reminder, a physical reminder, that some things need to come down. There needs to be more space in a particular part of my life, your life. And if you want to know which part of your life that you need more space, you need more attention, you're bringing down these old structures, I have a link in the show notes to an article that I wrote, Saturn in Capricorn sign by sign, and that talks about that particular area of your life, depending on your sun sign and depending on your rising sign, where the hands on the clock are pointing towards this restructuring, this rather profound restructuring. And I know you all are feeling it in your own way. I know because you are showing up in my client sessions, and there's an area of your life that's really demanding attention for many of you. So in the talk that I did with Ophi of the AstroTwins, make sure you check out their work if you don't know who they are already. They're actually pretty well known. They are the astrologers for Elle magazine. But we talked about, what part of each sign, what are the kind of the areas that need the attention right now as we go into January with Saturn and Pluto. And then also, what do you need to nurture? Because I'm all about practical tips and what can we do to work with this energy? And, having that opportunity to talk to Ophi was also an opportunity to talk about more what I do. So if you are new to my work, I'm an astrologer here in New York City. I'm also a psychic medium, and I bring a lot of different tools, including astrology, to my work because I believe that the natal chart is both this map that you came into this life with, but also, what's your divine blueprint? And how are you actively working towards, hopefully, to get closer and closer to your highest potential? It's sometimes hard to believe, and I know you all have had these moments in your life where you keep running into walls. There's that word again, walls. You keep running into the same patterns, you keep kind of stumbling on the same things, and you can't see why. And so another thing that comes into my work, and I think another thing that I'm going to be really talking about as we go into January, is this idea of shadow work. And as a Scorpio, this is kind of my domain. Scorpio is the sign of really having to face the shadow within and the shadow around us. And what is the shadow? It's kind of hard to believe that we have parts of us that are, let's say, actively working against us. These could be old patterns. These could be things that are in our unconscious. So I often say that empowering astrology is astrology plus consciousness. So how can we bring more awareness to these hidden parts of ourselves using astrology so that we can get closer and closer, step by step, to that divine blueprint? So that's the goal. That's the goal every day. I know some of you guys are tired, and I know you guys need to have some good TLC as we get to the end of the year, that you are taking care of yourself. I just am checking in with the comments. I see some familiar faces. Hello, Janet. Hello, Allison, Chelsea, Mimi. Yes, that is the whole goal of shadow work. Because the thing about shadow work is when you are not owning your shadow, meaning these hidden parts of yourself that are kind of, believe it or not on your team, they're not trying, not working for you, they're working against you. These are the parts that kind of show up as reflections, as projections in our relationships, whether it's a boss, whether it's somebody that we keep dating or other things. So we really want to, work to put light in everything so that we can have that true freedom to be ourselves, freedom to make the choices that are right for us, freedom to live the life that we're trying to create in this lifetime. So that's the goal, guys. So, when I look at the sky every day, when I write the astrology, I'm like trying to what's the hidden message? What's the bigger picture? What are we all trying to work on? So keep that in mind. Here we are, last week of Sagittarius season. So, the next few days, let's get philosophical. Let's question things. Let's search for answers. Let's search for within for answers, but let's also look outward for answers. Something that I read about today in my update, it's either on Facebook or on empoweringastrology.com, that this part of Sagittarius season, actually no, I put this on my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. This part of Sagittarius season is when the sun is getting to that last stretch of Sagittarius, which coincides with what's called the galactic center. So if you were to look up into the sky, that ribbon of the Milky Way that we can, we see photos of, and that's our galactic center. That's us looking towards the center of our galaxy. The thing is that we can't see that visibly this time of year because the sun is in the way. But if you can imagine, the sun is kind of lining up with all that cluster of stars, or those deep space points. So this part of Sagittarius season tends to have this otherworldly quality to it. We are, in a way, kind of ET phone home, able to, let's say, subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously connect with these deeper energies. This idea that, the center of the galaxy is almost like this kind of cosmic belly button. It's from where we are all connected and where we all came from, in a way, from that kind of source, that big bang. So it's a really interesting kind of stretch of Sagittarius. And if you have planets late in Sagittarius, if your birthday is around now, if you've got your sun or your moon or other planets, there tends to be an otherworldly quality to those planets. They kind of feel a little, let's say, galactic. They don't always feel like they're fully connected to planet Earth, because they really are looking up towards the stars and towards the center of our galaxy. But come the 21st of December, so that's Saturday, I believe, that's the first day of Capricorn season. And what that means is that we are also having the solstice. So if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere, like me, this is the winter solstice. It's the return of the light. I'm here in New York City, and the days have been getting increasingly darker and darker and darker now that the sun is getting to its, let's say, its lowest point. And it's because the Earth has this wobble. That's why we have the seasons. Anyway, that's astronomy. So when we have the solstice, the sun kind of gets to its lowest point, and now it's going to start to rise higher and higher, which means we're going to have more and more daylight here in the Northern Hemisphere. And the ancients, they celebrated this. They would do rituals and festivals and burn bonfires and the Yule log, because it was very sacred. It was the return of the light. For you, those of my friends down in Australia and New Zealand who are in the Southern Hemisphere, you are having the opposite effect. The sun has reached its highest point. You are having the longest day. And now from going forward until the, let's say, your winter solstice, you're going to have increasing darkness. So this is kind of this interplay between the northern and southern hemispheres. So for me personally, I'm very much looking forward to the return of the light, because it's so dark, especially those who are in northern latitude cities. It's quite dark, I'm sure. For those who are in London and Northern Europe, it does get quite dark around this time. So the solstice. And so when we have the solstice, we go into Capricorn season. We are entering a time where in our zodiac calendar, we need to focus on the material world. Now, Saturn's actually the ruler of Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of matter. So this idea of what is our relationship to the physical world? And this includes our ambitions, the work that we do, the jobs that we have, the the positions and the titles and the responsibilities. There's no coincidence that we start the new year and everybody kind of gets this, okay, I need to shape up. I need to start setting some goals for the new year. Well, we have Capricorn season really holding space for that. So it is a natural time as we go into the new year, both as the calendar flips, but also as the zodiac calendar shifts us into Capricorn season. What are your goals? What are your ambitions? And how are you setting out a path for yourself in 2020? Do keep in mind, as I was saying, as we began this Facebook Live, that we are going into a time where both Saturn and Pluto are together in the sky. So these ambitions and these goals might need some transformation work. And I think we need to look where, if we, I think sometimes we get in that uncomfortable space with the shadow work, and we have to really do the shadow work because our desires and our wants are bigger than what's holding us back. And so that's when we're really going to look in those uncomfortable places within and see what's in the way. So I think that as you set some goals for yourself in the new year, how are you also clearing a space for something better? And also really facing yourself, facing your shadow, facing the thing that sometimes gets projected into relationships. So I'm excited about Saturn and Pluto. I think it's a possible breakthrough when used well. It is intense energy, I'm not going to lie, but is it going to be the end of the world for people? Of course not. But it is marking a new cycle, a new time where we need to have a different relationship with the material world, different relationship with structure. And I was doing a talk here in New York City on Friday where I framed a lot of this within the context of this idea that Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. It'll be in Capricorn until 2024. So we have started this 12-year story. We got 4 more years to go. And here comes Saturn. It's kind of that next big milestone in a story that began in 2008. And I know that for many of you, life might be very different than it was in 2008. And when Pluto went into Capricorn, it said that wherever the Capricorn part of your chart needs a total transformation, that gut renovation. That's why, I shared that story earlier, and I shared that story with Ophi of the AstroTwins this weekend when we did our talk for the Astro Summit, that here I had banging on the walls, and I really honestly thought the workers were gonna just like sledgehammer through my living room wall. Thankfully they didn't, but I had to get the message, and I hopefully got the message. So tell me how you all are doing. How are you doing with this energy? How are you feeling about 2019 as we start to say goodbye, not just to a year, but we say goodbye to a decade. I said this in my last Facebook Live. I technically started Empowering Astrology in January of 2010. So it's been almost a decade in some ways for Empowering Astrology. I didn't really start my client work until about 2011, 2012. But it's been almost 10 years. So it's kind of crazy to think that is what's been going on. The other thing that's happening this week is that Venus changes signs. It's going into Aquarius. This is like, let's say, not as big deal compared to other things. I think the real marquee event for this week is the start of Capricorn season. It is the real, let's say, arrival into eclipse season. I like to argue that eclipse season starts about a month before the first eclipse. I certainly see that in my client work. The things that the eclipses are triggering are starting to manifest a month, and sometimes even a little bit more. So we are in an eclipse season, but it's really going into Capricorn season that we really start to get in the gate into that vortex of energy for the eclipses. And, I will return to Venus in Capricorn in a moment, or Venus in Aquarius in a moment, but do keep in mind that this week and your experiences this week might be a bit loaded, meaning you might be having experiences that seem fated. You might meet somebody that when you look back, it was an important meeting. The metaphor that I use for eclipses is that your life is a drama, and it's as if you were watching this theatrical production, and the eclipses are like one act of the play is ending and another is beginning. So if you've been to the theater, you know that you've got the stagehands, they're kind of rushing around in the dark to try to get things in position for the next act. You've got new actors waiting in the wings. You have the actors on stage preparing to leave. So there's this sense of that things are starting to rearrange right now. We are entering a major new time. And if you are, let's say, a Capricorn or a Cancer or an Aries or a Libra, the next 6 months might be filled with like a major shift, transformation, or even a milestone, depending on where that is. In fact, I'm going to be doing a webinar on this Thursday, December 19th, the eclipses of December 2019 and January 2020. My 90-minute webinar is going to go sign by sign what is happening. Also, of course, an overview and how these eclipses do connect with eclipses from January of 2019 as well as July of 2019, but even July of 2018. And you might see let's say a thread in January that is connecting back to something that started in July of 2018. So these eclipses, they just speak to a bigger story. Again, your life in some way is rearranging, maybe in a dramatic way and maybe in a quiet way, depending on where the eclipses are in your chart. All the registration is in my show notes if you want to learn about this eclipse and want to know how to register for this webinar. But yes, I'm looking at the comments. Somebody is ready for new actors. I think I am too, I guess. These eclipses, I'm not a Capricorn or an Aquarius or an Aries or a Libra, but I have what's called, this is some intermediate astrology, my midheaven is in Libra, my IC is in Aries. So when these eclipses in January kind of came in, January 2019, that was my sign that something about career, let's say the axis of my life, was going to start to shift over the next 6 months. And I wouldn't say lo and behold, because it wasn't a surprise to me, but I was making my decision to leave my full-time IT and graphic design job and do astrology full-time. I mean, you could say I was already doing it full-time, but now I just was going to only have one full-time job, not two full-time jobs. So there was other things going on in the sky. But this is how eclipses can talk about moves, changes in jobs, changes in relationships, meeting somebody new, depending on where these eclipses are activating your chart. Again, my webinar is on Thursday, December 19th. But to go back to Venus, she will be going into Aquarius on December 20th. In Aquarius, so Venus is the planet of what we, let's say, love, what we value, what we really, connect with. And when Venus goes into Aquarius, it's typically a place where Venus gets a little distant, but it's just because Venus likes its space in Aquarius. So I don't know if any of you out there have Venus in Aquarius, but it means that you value, you love, you need to kind of connect with this idea of friendship and community, social network, and also these bigger, let's say, politics, society, because Aquarius is that big picture sign. It helps us to connect to the world on a much bigger level. We have, let's say, Capricorn, the sign before Aquarius, which is about the world on a very kind of power structure, government level. And we get to Aquarius and it's like about humanity, this like that all 8 billion people on this planet. We're connected in some way. It's not the individual anymore. It's the we, it's the group in Aquarius. So those are your big highlights for this week. We do have, let's say, once that Venus gets into Aquarius, it will square off with Uranus on Sunday. So if you are a Taurus or a Libra, this weekend might have some twists and turns, or just some sort of new, especially if you're a Taurus, kind of that next big step in the story of reinvention that started for you in 2019, Taurus, because you have Uranus in Taurus and it will be there for the next 6 years. So those are, that's the big stuff, everybody. Again, RSVP to get my talk on Saturn and Pluto with the AstroTwins for free. Go to astrostyle.com/Katie or go to my show notes. Like I said, I have a webinar on Thursday. I want to teach you all about the eclipses. Repeating this again because I do get this question often this time of year. I do gift certificates. You can go to my booking page, also in the show notes. And of course, you can always book a consultation with me if you want to know what's going on for you in the new year. I love working with people one-on-one. So again, thank you all for joining me for another weekly look at the astrology. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook if you don't already. Twitter. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. And that is your weekly look at the astrology. Join me next week for your last look at the astrology of 2019 as we say goodbye not just to a year, but we say goodbye to a decade. So I love connecting with you all. Thank you so much for being on the live feed, and for those who are watching the replay, not just on Facebook, but on Instagram and YouTube as well. Send me your comments, and we will connect next week. So until then, bye.